Coming up on this edition of the MashUP, John Jay looks to defend its sectional title, but New Rochelle was looking to be a heartbreaker. Yorktown shows Lords what Class A is all about, and Poughkeepsie is headed in one direction, north. And I can count the number of touchdowns Reno Tambori had on one hand. But I have to use all 5 fingers. It has poise, it has noise, and it has some sadness and joys. So go ring someone's bell. The MashUP is next. Hi everyone and welcome to the MashUP. It was truly a great weekend for high school sports and the football season getting underway this past weekend. What a weekend it was, with some surprises, some individual performances that had everyone talking, and we'll have plenty to talk about as well. Rich Tomaselli is here with Ken Barger a little later in the program, but first, what do you want, the good news or the bad news? Well, let's start with a heartbreaker. Coming into the season, the John Jay Patriots were ranked as one of the top teams in Section 1. Defending sectional champs, their quarterback returns, as well as a few other key players. And while you can't really judge a team by its first game, you can judge its level of conditioning.
There was electricity in the air as the defending Class AA Section 1 champs took the field for the first game of the season. John Jay hosting New Rochelle, and Coach Tom O'Hare tried to contain his enthusiasm. Jay wasted no time. On New Rochelle's first possession, Danny Dietrich picks this one off and takes it 70 yards the other way. Unfortunately, there was a downfield penalty, so the ball was placed at the 40. Jay quarterback Ryan Schumacher took it from there with these 2 big runs to get the Patriots in the red zone. But John Jay had to settle for a field goal. It was 3-0 in the first. Second quarter, Jay's defense was hitting it hard. Meanwhile, the Patriots were still hitting it hard on offense. Schumacher finds Jovan Reynolds cutting across the middle, and Reynolds gets the yardage and another 15 for the horse collar penalty. From there, Schumacher takes it up the middle. His big body makes it hard for the Huguenots to take him down. And that gets it close enough for Danny Dietrich to power his way into the end zone. The extra point failed, making it 9-0 Jay. But New Rochelle battled back and takes to the air. Powell to Keelan Thomas for a 40-yard strike, and that puts the ball at the 3-yard line. From there, Jared Barron busts in for the Huguenots' first score. It was 9-6. Jay's biggest weapon seemed to be Schumacher. Several quarterback keepers racked up this kind of yardage and gets Jay within striking distance. Fourth quarter, here comes Schumacher. Jay leads 16-6. But Powell kept plugging away. Greg Powell connects with Rashawn McNeil for 2 big plays. And what was once a 10-point lead for Jay turned into a 2-point deficit as New Rochelle bounced back to take an 18-16 lead with under 2 minutes to play. Jay's final hopes were dashed when Schumacher threw this interception. That's the way it ends, with New Rochelle stealing one away from John Jay in the final 2 minutes of play. 18-16 the final.
It wasn't a lack of effort, but a lack of execution. We gave up a couple of big plays, and that's our biggest concern when you play a team with their explosiveness and speed, is that you can't stuff them on 3 plays and give up a big one on 4th down, and so on and so forth. They had a couple long passes that really hurt us, and all in all, we need to get better.
As one of the leaders on the team, what do you have to do this week to keep these guys up and not let them think this is the way the season's going to go?
We got to get motivated. We got to get in shape. We got a couple kids go down with cramps. That affects us a lot. We just got to be on top of little mistakes, blown coverage, touchdown. Just little stuff. Be all over it.
What do you think you guys need to do to kind of change it up next week? You playing MashUP?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what I could say right now. We got to sit down and watch a lot of film on them and definitely learn about their team and see where their weak points are and everything. Definitely, we just got to tighten up some things, and guys got to know exactly where it's supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, and just really tighten things up,
Another intriguing matchup was over in Section 9, Poughkeepsie and FDR. The Pioneers with first-year head coach Jerry North and FDR with head coach Brian Bellino, who has been running a solid program for many years. Interesting that Jerry North's full-time job is transforming athletes at his North Star Sports Fitness Center, because that's what happened on this Poughkeepsie field. It was nothing short of a transformation. FDR jumped right at it on Poughkeepsie's home field and scored 2 quick touchdowns. They actually led 26-6. But that was the first half. In the second half, down by 20 points, Poughkeepsie pioneered its way back to a dramatic 28-26 finish. Troy Schoonmaker plunged in from the 2 to make it 26-22 FDR, and then a huge FDR fumble recovery by Poughkeepsie led to a 34-yard strike from Schoonmaker to Malik Lewis to end the game. On a side note, FDR lost its starting quarterback, Justin Guerrero, to a knee injury in the second quarter. We'll keep you posted on his progress. And hang in there, Justin. Lourdes in Yorktown. What can you say about Our Lady of Lourdes? The Warriors get pushed up to Class A, which is the most competitive class in all of Section 1, maybe in all of New York State, with the likes of Rye and Somers and Yorktown and John Jay Cross River. Facing Yorktown in the home opener, the Warriors were shell-shocked before we could even get our cameras out of the bag.
While Yorktown struck with 2 TDs before our cameras arrived, the Warriors were still trying to find their groove. Dean Roger to Luke Tim, but the catch goes out of bounds. Later in the game, back for another shot at it. Roger connects with Tim for the Warriors' first TD in Class A. But Yorktown had everything working in the first half, where the Huskies did most of their damage. Jose Boyer breaks one loose for a big 30-yard gain, and then takes advantage of the wide-open man. It's 21-7 Yorktown. And check this out, Scott Weaver doesn't have to weave at all. He goes right down Broadway and leaves everyone in the dust. A 60-yarder makes it 27-7. Second half, with Dean Roger on the sidelines, backup quarterback Paul Holtze rolls out and connects with Billy Wagner to make it a 27-14 game. But that's as close as it would get, as the Huskies defense shut it down the rest of the way. Yorktown wins the season opener off a strong first half showing with a 27-14 win over Lourdes.
First half, the motivation seemed easy. We came out of the locker room with the right mentality. The kids were fired up. The second half, it seemed as though that we ran out of gas a little bit. Getting the first one's huge. It's always huge. It's always tough to rebound from any kind of a loss at any point. So I do hope that our confidence builds. I hope that we see the positive, and I also hope that our kids are mature enough to see what we have to improve. That's what good teams do.
We played scared. Second half we came out and we just started hitting and doing what we were supposed to do, doing our jobs.
We came out and we were just completely non-aggressive for some reason in that first half, and that, Yorktown's a good football team. When you don't play, this is a very physical game, and when you're not aggressive, people take it to you, and that's what happened in the first quarter.
So that brings us to Marlboro and Dover, and whoa, everyone knew this was a mismatch. Dover struggling to make a 25-man roster. Marlboro has about that many guys on its scout team. Either way, Marlboro could make plenty of noise again this year, as Rich Ward's Iron Dukes just seem to keep reloading year after year. And when you have a star running back like Reno Tambori returning, every night is Prince Spaghetti night. Our newest Hudson Valley Sports Report reporter, Mike Hines, provides the highlights and the post-game interview.
From early on, you could see that offense was going to be the big story of today's game. While working their way down the field, this pass gets the Dragons to the goal line, ready to strike. Dover quickly grabbed the first points of the game with this touchdown run by Jaquan Futrell. But Marlboro's offense wasn't too shabby either. This little dump pass off to the side puts the Dukes right onto the Dragons' doorstep. And when the Dukes were knocking on the door, it was Reno Tamburi who was right there to answer it. Here he comes in for his first touchdown of the day to give the Dukes the lead. The Dukes were simply running wild today. DeSantis again takes off. He's able to slip and slide past defenders. He just simply refused to go down. A different Duke is going to try and find his way into the end zone. Here the handoff to Tanner Hashberger, and he just pushes his way through all the Dragon defenders as he forces his way into the end zone. After Marlboro put up 55 straight points, it was time for Dover to answer. Here they stretched out and pushed the ball deep into Marlborough territory. Russell Bradshaw had a nice catch here and able to push his way through the end zone. Don't try and throw on John Perugino. Right here he plays excellent coverage, leaps, and he makes a great play to get the Dukes the ball back. And for one last time on the day, Marlborough is going to find their way into the end zone. They win this game 64-12.
Reno, that was a great game out there. Obviously, we know you had a great game running, 5 touchdowns. Can you take us through a little bit what you were thinking as you just kept on scoring?
Well, when you have an opportunity to score, especially close to the end zone, when you're inside the 10, there's no excuses not to get in. The blocks were just amazing. I didn't see a black jersey. I just saw white, made my cuts off that, and there it went.
Reno had a good game today, but like everybody contributed. You know, you just can't key on Reno because we have a lot of different weapons out there. I can name them, but I'm going to miss someone. But we got a bunch of kids who can run, who can carry the ball, and so when Reno scores, it's not just him, it's the whole team.
Hey, look at this, another thriller. Arlington steals one away from North Rockland on the Red Raiders home field. The Admirals were down 13-12 with a minute to go when quarterback Justin Lee hit Andrew Buck out on a 16-yard pass to win it, and that makes for an interesting scenario in Week 1 as Jay, North Rockland, Mamaroneck, and Greeley all lose. In other scores from around the area, check this out. Newburgh goes back to the scene of the crime, the Carrier Dome, facing Syr-Henninger, and yikes, do the Goldbacks make a statement or what? All that score says is, I'll be back. Bill Bianco and crew took the happy bus ride home from the Carrier Dome after the huge 64-0 win to start off the season. Now come back home to face a tough Stepinac team this Friday at Academy Field beginning at 7 p.m. Whoa, where did this come from? Spackenkill dropped Ellenville 55-0. This was a program that had won just 2 games in the last 2 years. That was then, and this is now. Freshman Dequam Lewinson ran for 2 scores. Cameron Abalos had a couple of TDs as well, 1 passing, 1 rushing, and Andres Blanco ran for 122 yards with 2 touchdowns himself. Adam Wennerston had 14 tackles on defense. Way to go, Spackenkill. Highland came out strong with a 34-7 win over Burke Catholic. The Huskies led 26-0 after the first quarter. Isaiah Daubon threw for 125 yards and 2 TDs. He ran for another touchdown. Paul Hansen had a TD reception and also a pick 6. Wallkill beat Pine Bush 21-14 in overtime. A.J. Dombrowski threw for 345 yards. Rondout edged out Saugerties 27-22. Pine Plains went wild over Eldred with a 47-0 shutout. Liberty outlasts Millbrook. The Blazers made a game of it late in the contest with 2 scores to tie it at 34, but Liberty punched one in and win it 40-34. Jacob Wright threw for 132 yards, and Delvin Wood had 2 TDs, including a kickoff return. Red Hook took their lumps against James I. O'Neill with a 47-22 loss. The game wasn't the only loss. The Red Raiders lost several key players to injury, including starting quarterback Nick Morrissey. The Ketcham Indians fell to Scarsdale 35-14, but there were some positive takeaways for first-year head coach Brian Hogan. Tayshawn Dodd had 168 yards rushing and 1 TD, but the bug was turnovers. There were 4 of them in the first half alone. Putnam Valley starts off the season with a bang, 34-17 with a win over Blindbrook. Mike Dellabate had 117 yards passing and scored a touchdown. Dylan White rushed just shy of 100 yards. He also scored. And Luis Fernandez also got in the mix with a score. Next game is the home debut against Irvington, Friday night at 7. MashUP beat Mamaroneck 21-7, and Carmel topped White Plains 39-24. So Putnam County owned Westchester County on this weekend. So plenty of great action for Week 1, and for more on the performances of the week that was and the week that will be, let's send it over to Rich Tomaselli with our in-studio guest analyst, Ken Barger. Rich?
All right, thank you, Charlie. I'm with Ken Barger, and it's good to see you again, buddy.
It's great to be here.
And Ken, of course, is writing for us, has done 2 fabulous pieces where he broke down our 2 best quarterbacks, Dean Roger and Ryan Schumacher of John Jay, and then just did a great piece for the scout teams and the practice squads, which was universally loved, I believe, by all the scout players.
Yeah.
Ken, of course, is a Section 1 championship winning coach at Poughkeepsie, and now is the Northeast Regional Scouting Director for Exos Digital. So he's doing a lot of stuff now with getting kids from high school into college. So let's talk a little bit about week one.
Sure.
And I wanted to start with something interesting, which is, and I'm sure given your experience and your years of coaching at different levels, that you had to run into this at some point, but a month into the season, you start practicing, you got week one. I mean, I started growing my winter beard after September 1, and it's scorching outside, and it's been. How much of the heat do you think affected some teams?
I think it definitely affects teams. I think it affects individual players a lot. I think especially that first week of the season. With our preseason this year, it was warm and then cool and warm again. So it becomes really hard for the players and the teams to adjust to those conditions. Sometimes as a coach, you're really looking for 2 straight weeks of really warm weather so that you can get the kids really acclimated to it. But I think one of the things is that as kids come in that first week, they're so fired up. They're so they expend so much energy in that first half that all across the state you see kids coming out in the third and fourth quarter with dealing with cramps.
Yeah, that's the one thing I wanted to mention. I mean, following a lot of the games on Friday and Saturday, you could see parents, other fans, fellow media, tweeting out, well, here they come, so-and-so just cramped up, so-and-so has to go to the sideline. It's hard. It's very hard.
Absolutely. It's something that, because so many of our high school kids live in the here and now, and, it's really a battle, the hydration battle. It's something that starts 2 and 3 days before. And the young people have to really learn to, really take care of themselves, the way they eat, the way that they include as much water into their diet as possible, and it's something that it's hard for those guys because on the high school level you don't have strength and conditioning coaches.
Sure, you don't have a training table, you don't
staff and all those things. So it's really incumbent upon them and the parents to try to really get them as hydrated as possible before that game.
All right, let's talk a little week one.
Yeah.
So 3 teams that are perennially in our HVSR Power Rankings top 5. Who have been and won sectional championships are actually in danger, a big danger, coming up on week 2. We'll get to that in a moment. But the 3 are Lords, Millbrook, and John Jay. They're all in an 0-1 hole already with huge games for each of them coming up. Let's start with John Jay. Your impressions of the Patriots. Never really in control of the game, but certainly had the lead, led by 10, and then lost with a furious comeback by New Rochelle.
It's, obviously you get, first game is always a very difficult game. So, you have, you bring New Rochelle up, a traditional power, out of Westchester. John Jay did a nice job of, forcing turnovers, forcing, New Rochelle into mistakes. And ultimately, it was one of those things where they just, they couldn't hold on long enough to, to secure the win. But I think, Coach O'Hare and the staff there are very proud of their effort. The kids really played, their tails off the entire time, and it's something that, to be able to control New Rochelle for that amount of time was impressive in my mind.
Right. Do you think we'll see more, or was it just a game one thing? Do you think we'll see more of the designed runs by Ryan Schumacher out of the pocket? I mean, that's a big kid. He's not, he's very athletic. He's not as athletic, say, as some of the quarterbacks you had at Poughkeepsie. But was that just a game one thing to get them rolling, get them acclimated to the offense? Will we see him drop back and pass more, or?
I think you'll see a combination of the two. I think you will see him being used in spots because, as you can see, he was an outstanding runner in that game. He picked up critical first downs. He picked up every time he went into the pile moved forward.
Right. I was going to say, he's fast. I mean, he's not fleet of foot, but he's hard to bring down.
Absolutely. He is and when I did my write-up on him, he's a young man that looks for contact. He enjoys it. He seems to, to relish it. And it's something that he had, he went into, several New Rochelle defenders and did a great job gaining, yards after contact. So what I would expect, though, is I think you're going to see Jay continue to progress. I think you're going to see the running game continue to progress as they start to gain more experience, and then you'll see the play-action passing game and some of the drop-back passing really, come into its own as Jay continues to run the ball. When they really get that tailback running game going, I think that's when you're going to see,
things open up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Sure. All right, let's jump over now and start talking about Our Lady of Lourdes.
Sure.
They lost to Yorktown. They were close at 13-7, but Yorktown really kind of controlled the game. And of course, they lost Dean Roger, the quarterback, for the second half, although he appears to be fine, should play this week. But we were talking off camera. That's a big jump.
Yes.
That's a big jump going to Class A. No matter who's healthy, who's not healthy, that's a big jump for them.
And to go against Yorktown, the sectional finals from the year before. I mean, I had a chance to scout them during the preseason at camps, and they are an excellent team. They have an excellent set of skill guys, a huge line up front. They are a very impressive team. So for Lourdes to be able to come in, jump up like that, and be able to battle, I think it's a real credit to Coach Walsh and the players. And then for them to be able to hang on and compete even when Dean going down, I think it's a real credit to what they're doing as a program. And so to be able to, I'm interested to see how they handle the schedule the rest of the way.
Right, that was another thing we were talking about. You run down, and the Lord's just not playing all of these teams, but you run down Class A, and you've got you look at some of the top 8 or 10 teams. Everyone's won a sectional championship. Absolutely. Everyone. You've got Somers,
yep.
Rye,
Yep.
Harrison. J Cross River is very difficult.
Yes.
So their schedule is going to be a beast. Class C, Section 9, Millbrook. Again, we were discussing 40-34 loss to Liberty. 34 is not surprising for Millbrook. The 40 is surprising.
Absolutely. Coach Keenan and his teams usually do a fantastic job on defense, and that's really what they've built their program on is a really powerful running game, control the clock, and control the tempo of the game. So it was something that as I was following the game, to see the constant, you don't really expect to see Millbrook in a shootout type situation.
Yeah. When they roll up that many points, it's usually 56-10 or something like that.
Absolutely.
So it was surprising.
Yeah.
All right, your old team.
Yes.
Let's talk Poughkeepsie. Terrific comeback win. They were in the hole 26-6 in the second half. And then, you can't rely on, I wrote this today, you can't rely on the quote-unquote 3-run home run every time you come up. But the Poughkeepsie got the huge plays. They got the great kickoff return.
Yes.
They forced a fumble. They got the game-winning touchdown pass was a long pass, 34 yards. Talk a little bit about the Pioneers and, and you're friends with Jerry.
Yes.
So, him kind of bringing back a little bit of what you used to do.
First and foremost, it's a great win for them after coming off of 2, very rough seasons. They've worked all off season on really bringing back pride into the Poughkeepsie program. It's something that the kids have really bought into what he's asking them to do, and it's something that I think it really showed on the field. I think FDR, Coach Bellino has done a fantastic job of really taking that program from something that was just at the absolute bottom of Class AA in Section 1 to now. I mean, they're a competing power in Section 9 in the AA ranks. So for Poughkeepsie to be able to come back, to be able to show that, even though they were down, they fought back. And yes, I mean, they have the athletic skill and ability to hit those 3-run home runs. So they are never really out of a game. So as long as they continue to, put forth the effort and believe in each other, then, they're going to be fine.
Right. And before we talk about week 2, let's wrap up week 1 with some of the, what I thought were some great wins by programs that had been down the last couple of years. Spackenkill goes on the road. They were 1-7 each of the last 2 years, 2-14 combined. Spackenkill goes on the road and just absolutely annihilates Ellenville. Pine Plains pitches a shutout, a big shutout against Eldred, and Eldred is a Section 9 team, but is having some depth problems. But nonetheless, Pine Plains was very impressive. You've got a couple of teams now that can start, live off the motivation a little bit of game 1. So how do you prep them to go into game 2?
Well, it's unique because, this is the real challenging week. I mean, every week is challenging for coaches, but this is the real challenging week because whether you're 0-1 or 1-0, you've got to really get a real pulse of your team and really see where you are.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The whole idea of being fired up for game 1 and coming out of the preseason is over now. Now you got to go into the rest of the season.
Correct. This is where team structure and discipline and, really and attention to detail really takes really good teams and makes them great. So you'll see that this week in terms of, you know, teams that won in the first week, if their attention to detail is good, then they'll go ahead and take care of business the second week. But if they start to feel like, oh man, we're, you know, just because you won week one, you get an automatic W in week two, you'll find that, you know, in high school football in New York in this area, you will, you know, you've got to come in prepared every single week.
Well, speaking of preparation, let's wrap this up by talking about week two. If you're the coach, and I'm certain you've been in this position as well, you've got, again, going back to what we started with, you've got 3 teams who have perennially been in the HVSR top 5, looking at being in a humongous hole if they lose and go to 0-2. You've got Lords at Beacon. You've got John Jay at a very, very good MashUP team, which beat Mamaroneck. And then you have Millbrook hosting Sullivan West, and that's a matchup of last year's sectional championship game. So Sullivan West is a pretty good team as well. What are you focusing on in this week of practice? Obviously, you're looking at game film just like it's any other week, but how much of an emphasis do you put on the fact, you know, listen, we dropped to 0-2, we're in a heap of trouble?
You know what, I can tell you, knowing all 3 men, you know, Sean Keenan, Brian Walsh, Tom O'Hare, that they're going to prepare their kids and just focus on what they need to do, all right? They're going to put the standings to the side, and they're really going to focus on what do we need to do to get better today, on Labor Day, tomorrow, you know, and then prepping, getting into those, you know, like you said, huge games, because each of them, you know, has tremendous opponents coming, you know, in week 2. So. Right. It's something that, you know, they'll obviously, you know, all good coaches will talk to their teams and let them know where they stand. Right. But I think they're going to spend the vast majority of time focusing on what they did well and then how do they build on it.
All right. Ken Barger, we appreciate it. He's our high school football analyst, and we thank him for coming in, and thank you for tuning in to the MashUP.
Thanks, guys. So that will do it for this edition of the MashUP. We look forward to the week ahead. And for Rich Tomaselli and Ken Barger, I'm Charlie Carnaccio. We'll see you inside the line.